This week's guest on my podcast, The Breakup Breakdown, showed me that women can be just as toxic and manipulative as men in relationships. And it has everything to do with a text that my interviewee read to me. Now, if you've never listened to my podcast, it's on Bert's Pioneer Network that he owns. I have to legally tell you that. And basically, I interview these people about their worst breakups ever. Sometimes people give me submissions from like all over. Sometimes people will just submit their own breakup stories to me. And I had not a first on my podcast this week, but I had a third, if you will. Most of my breakup stories are from women. And this week, I had a man on the podcast.
Well, you had a dude.
I had a dude, and he submitted himself.
Love
and it's
this.
so rare that I get that because I want to have multifaceted perspectives because I think it's so important, especially when you've done the podcast as long as I have. I'm coming on 4 years, and there's just I've heard it all at this point, except from a lot of perspectives from men, just because so many women, I feel like, kind of do the emotional and insightful work when it comes to their breakups to where they can come on the podcast and they have something worth sharing. Whereas I feel like it is kind of a stereotype that guys sort of suppress their emotions and suppress their feelings, and they don't always know how to communicate it verbally in the best way. But this guy that I had on my podcast was so eloquent in the way that he talked about his breakup with his high school sweetheart. And I'm going to try and dance around some of the more inappropriate aspects of this story, so bear with me here. But basically, this guy got with his high school ex-girlfriend after she cheated on her boyfriend with him. So the guy that came on my podcast was like the other man.
Got it.
And he's like, I'm not going to be like those other guys because we were best friends in high school, so we're different. I'm built different than those other dudes.
She won't do this to me.
She's not going to do it to me, even though she did it to 4 other guys before me, because we're besties. And she ends up somehow, I don't want to use the word manipulating because I don't know this girl, but he says that he says that he felt like she coerced him into moving across the country to go to her college that she wanted to go to. So he ends up moving to the Midwest from the South to be able to go be with her. And I guess while they're there, they get in this group of friends, and he has this really close guy friend that she is also really close with, and you can kind of see where this is going. And they were at a party, and he said this was one of like the first signs that he knew something was going on. She went to the bathroom, and I guess this guy followed her, and he's like, banging on the door. He's like, what are you guys doing in there? Like, get out. Like, what's happening? What's going on? And so they both, the best friend and the girlfriend, exit the bathroom together, and she's all upset. And he's like, what's going on? And so he follows her into this bedroom, and he looks at her text messages because she's like kind of drunk, sort of like falling asleep. And she sees this message from the girlfriend to the best friend who she was just locked in the bathroom with. And she said, I'm sorry for pushing you off. I wanted to make sure it went in the right place. I'm kind of dancing around what she actually said. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And so he goes, oh, I wonder if I'm getting cheated on. But that wasn't even like the final straw for him. A couple more things had to happen. And it was really heartbreaking to hear what he went through, because I could just see that he's the type of guy that wears his heart on his sleeve. And he said something really interesting to me, and I kind of picked up on this towards the end, but he said when that breakup ended up happening, I dealt with it in 2 ways. The first half of that breakup for him, I feel like, is the very stereotypical way that men kind of deal with these breakups. Like, they will punch walls, and they will party, and they will do drugs, and they will do kind of everything you can think of that would be toxic to yourself. And then the latter half of his breakup, he said that once he felt like he had what he called the safe place with friends, with guys that were open to embracing his vulnerability, he said that's when he was finally able to open up about how that breakup affected him. He said he was brave enough to then go to therapy. And it was this really beautiful moment to where I'm like, okay, yes, it's okay to acknowledge the fact that as a guy, you felt like you should go in one direction when this breakup ended. But how cool of a story, like a redemption arc, for you to be able to come out on the other side in a much healthier way. And I asked him, I said, well, what do you think guys can do to be able to allow their friends to have these open conversations so more people can have these healthy relationships or these healthy breakups when they do end? And he said, honestly, it just takes one person in that guy friend group to accept a guy being vulnerable for those conversations to happen.
See, I think this is so important to discuss because whenever, typically, we're speaking in general terms, right? When a woman has a bad breakup, she has a bevy of girlfriends that are there for her with shoulders for her to cry on, right? And she can vent and she can lament and they can raw lift her up. But when a dude goes through a nasty breakup, I can see where you're not going to be received that way, and it's harder to be vulnerable because dudes are going to be like, just suck it up, man. And like to be able to express your emotions and them to be received and have people to lean on. Hopefully there's a shift happening and, we are raising more emotionally in tune young men who will be there for their guy friends when they go through bad breakups. But yeah, because that's, you're going to want to lean on your friends. And I feel like because of like toxic masculinity or whatever, dudes would be like, get over her by getting under another. But instead, no, you just want to talk to somebody and you want to have your feelings heard.
No, it was really cool. And he's married now and he says his wife is now that safe place for him. I'm like, it's so beautiful. And I always do a follow-up episode. So Jackson and Mikey actually came on and talked about some of their breakups that they've had and how they deal with it. So if you want to listen to either episode, they both came out this week. And again, the podcast is called The Breakup Breakdown. You can get it wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
And it's on Bert's podcast network, Pioneer.
The Bert Show.